We're going to hear about the Serbian Orthodox heritage, a journey through sacred landmarks in Serbia from people who are from Serbia. Yes, we welcome Svetlana Predrag Rogic, all the way from Belgrade, Serbia, but they've been here for a long time. So you can tell their English is good, and they've been in our parish for a while, so hopefully you all know them. And if you don't, read the bio. Lots of really incredible talents that they have. But the very last thing is what I want to know. Have you come up with gentle ways to deter squirrels from digging in your garden?
We're working on it.
They're working on it.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe next year Lenten Lecture on that.
I use brute force, but
I just ended that.
Okay. Sorry about the technological problems we had tonight. I'm not going to take any more time. Svetlana, Predrag, thank you for agreeing to present to us. We look forward to hearing all about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Father. And thank you, everyone, for coming to this lecture in Serbian Orthodox heritage. So before I take you on a personal journey to some of the sites I visited in recent years, Predrag will give you an overview of the significance of Serbian Orthodox heritage, emergence of the Serbian state, and autocephaly of the Serbian Orthodox Church. And then we will conclude the lecture and open for any questions you may have at that point. The mic is yours.
okay. Can everyone hear me well? So we don't have a lot of time, and Svetlana has this visual splendor prepared for you in her journey. So I'm going to try to give you some framework to think about as you go through the presentation and see all the beautiful photography and visual testament. Maybe to give you a framework as to how to think about these, the narrative that we'll present today. So I'm gonna maybe talk about things, historical ideas, forces, and personalities and locations, how they blend together into wholes, and how they sort of make themselves manifest through history. And I think that'll be helpful. I sound a little bit mysterious, but I'll hopefully be a little more clear as we go along. So I'll start with the foundational idea, which is, these lands, the Serbian land, where these sites and people are located back in the 1st century, were called, there were different names that they were known by. One of them is Illyricum. And as we look into the testimony of St. Paul in his letter to the Romans, he mentions that he has gone from Jerusalem to Illyricum and fully preached the gospel of the Lord, the word of God. So that's a gift that we received, that we were blessed with that kind of foundational opportunity from very early on. Building on that, the next concept I want to talk about is the theme of our discussions today, the Serbian heritage, which again can be thought of as a union of 3 concepts. One is the Serbian nation, the other is the Serbian state, and then finally the Serbian Orthodox Church. Those 3 have throughout history worked together. They have been dependent on each other. At times, one of them has taken lead over, and led others through difficult times. Just to give an illustration, for example, the emergence of the Serbian Orthodox Church would not have been possible without the formation of a powerful medieval state in the middle 12th century. So in this case, the state sort of led and the church followed. But then, for example, during the difficult times of the brutal Ottoman occupation of the Serbian lands, the state disintegrated, and the church was the one that really held the Serbian nation and the Serbian ethos together through those very difficult times. And then we have an example of World War I. I'm skipping through history, but it's just an illustration where the Serbian state kind of stood its ground against a overwhelmingly more powerful enemy in the Austro-Hungarian empire and the German empire, the German state, and led by the heroic army, the Serbian nation was able to defeat them through unimaginable struggles, where we were actually forced to abandon the country, and almost the entire nation went by foot through the rugged mountains of Albania to friendly Greece, where the army recovered and then came back to expel the enemy for good. And so that's an example of where the state sort of was the one leading the charge, and sort of maintaining that the unity of the whole. I'm going to talk. Another union we have is two personalities. We have the theme of our discussion here, and you will see them represented on the frescoes. These are the father and son. Stefan Nemanja, who is right here, and his son Sava, or young son Ratko. So basically, Stefan Nemanja and Ratko are the two most. Stefan Nemanja is the founder and the progenitor of the Nemanjić dynasty, which is a powerful royal dynasty that had ruled Serbian lands roughly for 2 centuries, again, starting from the mid-12th century and onwards through 11 different rulers that ruled in succession. And again, a very symbolic sort of vision we have here, where we have a father who, Stefan Nemanja, who kind of rose through, distinguished himself with his military and political skill, and was sort of the leader that in the mid-12th century led the unification of the various Serbian lands, sort of struggled against the powerful rivals at the time, which mainly the Great Byzantine Empire, but also the Hungarian Empire, Bulgarian as well, and then all different sort of more remote incursors by the Normans, the Germanic kings, the Crusaders. So there was a lot of activity at those times, but he sort of managed to lead and unify and consolidate the Serbian land into a very powerful medieval state. Roughly, we're talking here, Stefan Nemanja was born in 1114, and he assumed the title of, at that time, Great Župan, which was the sort of the title of the ruler of Serbia, in 1168. So he was sort of a late bloomer. You would say he was I guess 54 by my calculations. But then he ruled for about 30 years, and again achieved incredible success in consolidating a powerful state. And his son, young Ratko, he had three sons. Ratko was his youngest son, who was born in 1175. So Nemanja was 61 at the time. Young Ratko, who was showed a very early talent for reading and writing, and was drawn to monastic life in his youth. But his father had wanted him to succeed him in the political and military life, and actually had devoted or sent him to a region called Hum to be kind of bred or groomed to be the governor of that region, and maybe eventually take on the throne. He was about 15 years old at the time, but Ratko was drawn to he had different aspirations, and he in his 17th year as a teenager decided to go to Mount Athos and become a monk, sort of giving up his the earthly gifts that were bestowed upon him from his family, which was at the time taken as with great what is the word? With his family was very concerned about this, and they, actually his father sent a delegation to try to bring him back to Serbia. And for those that are not aware, Mount Athos is the peninsula in Greece, which is, for more than 1,000 years has been sort of a land of monasteries of all the Orthodox churches, and is another location that is key to our story. But kind of in a twist of fate, the father who wanted to get his young son back into the earthly life in his old age, when he was in his 80s, decided himself to renounce the throne and follow his son into the monastic life, and ended up, amongst Simeon and later as Saint Simeon. And with his son, Rasko actually spent time on Mount Athos in living the monastic life. I know I'm nearing time, but hopefully this gives you a framework of the Nemanjić dynasty. And then I'm going to end with another member of this dynasty. Now we're skipping about 100 years, and we're in 1330. This is the King Stefan Uroš III, who was among his other accomplishments, he founded the Dečani monastery, which is one of the jewels of Serbian monastic architecture, and is a vibrant monastic community even today in the heart of Kosovo and Metohija, which is another location alongside Mount Athos, which is key in our story here. But I think he has in one document that I want to draw your attention to. I don't know if we can show. It's a Dečani charter of the Dečani monastery. So it's a fascinating document. Here we go. It is kind of serves as has many functions. It's sort of a legal document. It's a real estate deed, very precise, and sets out all the lands and other property that he's bestowing to the monastery. But it's also an incredible personal confession and sort of an exposition of his faith. And he had a difficult life, and he gives God thanks in this document. Just to give you an illustration, he was blinded by his father through palace intrigue. His father was made to think that he was plotting against him, and he actually took away his eyesight and sort of sent him to exile. The Lord restored his eyesight, and actually Stefan ended up being king of Serbia, assuming full power. And in this document, he gives thanks to the Lord for those incredible gifts that he received. And also, I will end with how Stefan describes the Nemanjić dynasty, kind of their ethos, which I think is exemplary. Just give me a second. So he says in the charter, he started. This is the next step. So he's quoting Psalm 96: "Give unto the Lord the glory due unto His name. He was beloved by our fathers, who also trusted in Him, and were saved. For rejecting the concern of all earthly things and turning to spiritual reason and the fear of God, they exchanged the earthly kingdom for heavenly life and glory eternal, leaving for us on earth memorials worthy of praise, filling our souls and our bodies with all sweetness and joy." I will end with that. I think it's sort of a good testament of the Nemanjić dynasty, and then also through them, the spirit upon which the Serbian church, state, and nation is founded. I will turn over to Svetlana to give you a more rich visual presentation of all the locations that I may have mentioned briefly.
Well, thank you for this inspiring historical and theological overview of the origin of the Serbian state and Serbian Orthodox Church. this is a picture of Hilandar Monastery that Predrag mentioned. Before I take you on a personal journey to key heritage sites in cities of Belgrade, Valjevo, Despotovac, and Kosovo and Metohija region, I'd like to quickly show the changing map of Serbian Orthodox churches and monasteries, and also quickly review main architectural styles that emerged during that time. So here we have a map of Serbia in 1135. This is before Stefan Nemanja, or Sinsin, later the Mir Gusher, founded the Serbian state and became the Grand Prince of Serbia. So you see, Serbia is in yellow there. This is the starting point. I will show you the next map of Serbia as an empire next to the Byzantine Empire, and we have. So you see how it expanded. I'm sorry. Oh. Serbia has expanded from a region here where main monasteries, Saint Savas, Saint Sivir, Malmaja, Studenica, and later Hilandar. The kingdom expanded to the area that current Serbia is somewhere in the middle of countries that cover today's internet. Okay, all right. Okay. So today's Croatia, Montenegro, Macedonia, Greece, Albania, and parts of Bulgaria. So this is the height of the Serbian Empire in the mid-14th century. After the fall of the Serbian Empire in the late 14th century and the final Ottoman conquest of the northern part of Serbia, or Serbian territories in the mid-15th century, the Serbian Orthodox Church under Islamic rule in the Ottoman Empire experienced a dark age for the next 400 years, as Predrag did mention. So fast forward to today, this is a map of Serbia in Europe, inclusive of Kosovo and Metohija region, marked by the darker area in the south of Serbia. So today, Serbia is home to over 200 monasteries, of which 54 have been designated as cultural monuments, and countless Orthodox churches that remain vibrant centers of Orthodox faith. The region of Kosovo and Metohija, which is the cradle of Serbian civilization, the name consists of two toponyms, the Serbian word Kosovo, based on the word kos, which means a black bird, and the word Metohija, derived from a Greek word metok, which means property of a monastery. Metohija received its name due to the fact that most of the land had been granted to numerous monasteries that were established by Serbian rulers, which Predrag also mentioned in the case of Saint Sava and Saint Simeon. Through the centuries, Kosovo and Metohija, with their 1,300 and some archaeologists state 1,400 churches and monasteries, holy places and grave sites, have become for the Serbian people what Jerusalem is to Jewish people. Kosovo is first and foremost a liturgical category. The Kosovo covenant is a covenant with heaven first laid by Holy Prince Lazar on the eve of the Battle of Kosovo. The earthly kingdom is short-lived, but the heavenly kingdom is forever and ever. The Battle of Kosovo didn't end in 1359. It is ongoing. One's life and every day is the Battle of Kosovo. Which kingdom to choose? Earthly or heavenly? So one could write a dissertation or several dissertations on each of the architectural styles that emerged in the medieval Serbia, but in the interest of time, I will very briefly go over the main styles. So with the emergence of the Serbian state, the artistic and architectural development of Serbian Orthodox churches and monasteries was influenced greatly by the Byzantine tradition from the east, if you remember the map, and the Romanesque from the west. Over time, Serbian churches developed a unique artistic and architectural identity, and the number of Serbian monasteries and churches rank among the finest architectural and artistic achievements in medieval Europe. They're often referred by renowned world historians as the Byzantine Renaissance. The most important and most valuable ones have been included on the UNESCO list of World Cultural Heritage. So I will go over briefly over three main architectural styles. The Rashka style, which developed in the late 12th to early 14th century, Serbo-Byzantine, also known as Varta style, in the 14th century, which flourished during the reign of the Nemanjić dynasty in the late Middle Ages, and finally the Morava style. So here we have a picture of Studenica Monastery, Church of the Holy Virgin, and this is a prime example of the Rashka architecture. It originated in the Rashka region, and this early style harmoniously reconciles two architectural styles, the Byzantine and the Romanesque. The architectural conception of Byzantine, the shape is a single nave, vaulted basilica with a dome in the middle. The three-sided apse, the altar apse, the narthex, so it's always on the east, and the narthex on the west. There are also portals in the north and the south. The facades were built with slabs of white marble. They're decorated in the Romanesque style, and the doors and windows are adorned with decorative ornaments carved in white marble and marble with large figures for background. So this monastery was founded by Grand Prince Stefan Nemanja in 1186 as his principal endowment and his sepulchral church. As Predrag mentioned earlier, Stefan Nemanja followed the footsteps of his son Rasko, who became Monk Sava, and he himself became Monk Senior. Next, we have here Gračanica Monastery in Kosovo and Macedonia, which represents one of the masterpieces not only of Serbian medieval art, but also of the late Byzantine art and architecture in general. The most characteristic feature of this style is the base in the form of an inscribed cross. In buildings with this base, the main dome is located at the intersection of two semicircular vaults. Across the dome there. So this church, besides the main vault, has additional four domes, smaller ones, on the arms of the base, and beneath the vaults, there are no load-bearing wall columns that perform that role, which explains the shape of the roof. Here is another illustration of the architectural genius of Gračanica. The shape of the cross is visible from the outside. The facade was built by alternately using stone and brick. Facades were no longer decorated with elaborate Romanesque style ornamentation. So this is a very unique Serbian Byzantine style of architecture. The third Morava style school emerged during the decline of the Serbian Empire in late 14th and early 15th centuries. And best examples of this style are the endowment of Prince Lazar, Monastery Jovannica, and Monastery Ljubostinja, pictured here, which was founded by Princess Milica, the wife of Holy Prince Lazar Hrebljenović, shortly after he was killed at the Battle of Kosovo. Princess Milica lived there as nun Eugenia, and upon her death was buried in the monastery church. The Church of the Dormition has a single dome and is composed of a tripartite sanctuary on the east side and the narthex on the west side, which was initially open and was later vaulted by a donator vault. The church exterior is adorned by the rich architectural ornamentation, which is characteristic of the Morava school. Here we have a close-up photo of the Bipora and another photo of a stone rosette carved with geometric and vegetative forms. So I will begin my personal journey with a temple of Saint Sava in Belgrade, our hometown. It's the largest Orthodox church in the Balkans and one of the biggest in the world. It is, of course, dedicated to Saint Sava, the founder of the Serbian Orthodox Church, who gained all autocephaly of the Serbian Orthodox Church. It is built in Vračar Hill in Belgrade, and it stands on the very site where, according to the oral tradition, the Ottoman Grand Vizier Sinan Pasha burned the relics of Saint Sava in 1595 in an attempt to suppress Serbian resistance. So the idea to build the temple emerged in the late 19th century, and you see the chronology of events. So after much delay due to wars, the communist regime, etc., the construction resumed in 1985, and the exterior was completed in 2004. The work of the interior, including 161,000 square feet of magnificent mosaics, was completed in 2020. The church follows Byzantine style inspired by Hagia Sophia in Constantinople with a 70-meter high dome adorned with a golden cross. The mosaics created by Russian artists depict Christ the Pantocrator, Most Holy Mother of God, biblical scenes, and Serbian saints. So these photographs were taken during my visit to Belgrade in 21 when I was invited to the ordination of one of the bishops of Serbian Orthodox Church, Bishop Jerote, by His Holiness Patriarch Porfirio of Serbia. It was a very special and joyous occasion with almost all bishops in attendance and renowned Byzantine choir from Athens, founded by the late composer and professor of Byzantine music, Lykorgos Angelopoulos, singing responses. So here's a short video clip from the ordination. I hope you enjoy it. It's an amateur clip on my phone, which I don't like to film.
How does it feel to be inside of the actual cathedral? Because like the photos show that it seems massive, but like I feel like it's. I mean, what was that? Yeah.
I'll answer this question, but I would please ask you to ask questions in the end of the presentation. It is massive, 80 meters. So a meter is about 3 point some feet in height, and it's enormous. And there's a crypt underneath, which was actually finished first, and that's where it was finished while Patriarch Irene, the former patriarch, was alive. So he's there. It's just, you have to come and see it. I invite you to come to our next pilgrimage. But the mosaics itself, and the marble, just the whole aesthetic, it's massive. It was meant to be the largest Orthodox shrine in Europe. I think that's how they envisioned the architect. So, on the way to our next destination, I passed churches, and I passed the ones that are particularly dear to me. So this church is dedicated to Saint Simeon, and it's in our, at one point, old neighborhood of New Belgrade district. Saint Mark Church in Old Town District, Belgrade, which resembles the church that I showed you earlier, perhaps, Gračanica. And Church of the Holy Trinity, also known as the Russian Church, is the only Russian church in Belgrade. It was meant mainly for refugees from Soviet Russia who arrived in Serbia by thousands in 1920. This is the Church of St. Alexander Nevsky and is located in the Dorchel neighborhood of Old Town, right across the street from my high school, the first Belgrade Gymnasium. And this is a peek into my early childhood neighborhood. A Church of the Holy Refuge of Michael, often referred to as the Cathedral Church in Belgrade. Cathedral meaning main church in Belgrade. It is in a different style because of when it was built. It's neoclassical with Baroque elements, and it's located across the church from the Patriarchy building, which is here. It takes up the whole block, and my paternal aunt's apartment here, and my elementary school. So this is my neighborhood. And this is the inside. And as you can see, the church is full. Again, I really try not to take pictures during the service, but I snapped one. And this was on the feast day of Holy Martyr Prince Lazar, the 20th of June. So here we are at our next destination, Ružica Church and St. Paraskeva Chapel. Two of these most cherished spiritual sites are hidden within the walls of the Belgrade Kalemegdan Fortress. Ružica Church, or translated to English Little Rose Church, is dedicated to Nativity of Theotokos. The original church was built in the early 15th century, but was destroyed during the Ottoman period. And in the late 19th century, the church was adapted from a structure that served as Austrian gunpowder warehouse. The bell tower was erected and all traps was added, and the church was severely damaged during World War I and was thoroughly renovated again in 1925 when it received the current appearance. What makes Ružica truly extraordinary is its military-inspired interior. Two of its massive chandeliers are crafted from World War I trophy weapons and spent bullet casings. Yeah. In front of the entrance to the church, which you may have seen in the previous photo, there are two bronze statues cast from cannon shells, one of which represents a medieval warrior from the time of Emperor Dusan, and the other of a Serbian soldier from the beginning of the 20th century, both symbolizing transition from war to peace and perseverance of the Serbian people. The frescoes in the church were painted in 1938 by the Russian painter Andrei Vasilievich Pitsenko, in addition to the usual religious motifs, the biblical scenes, and you can see some of the details in this photo. There are frescoes of some of the most significant Serbian rulers holding their endowments, churches, as offerings to God. So I attended liturgy at Ružica Church on the Feast of the Nativity of St. John the Baptist. And before the dismissal, the priest invited everyone to join us in a procession to nearby St. Petka Chapel. And so we proceeded to St. Petka, also known as St. Paraskeva. She's believed to be a protector, especially for women, the sick, and the poor, and is also considered a patron saint in the Balkan region, particularly in Serbia. The chapel is built over a miraculous spring, which flows from the rock beneath the chapel. It is believed to have healing properties, and it attracts pilgrims who often come to drink the water and pray for blessing. So I have another very short video of the procession. Okay, we're here at the next destination, the Lelic Monastery near Valjevo. I visited Lelic at the invitation of my friend and well-known iconographer Tanja Ristic from Valjevo on the occasion of her family Slava. Slava is a centuries-old Serbian tradition where a family commemorates their patron saint. And you can partly see this photo. Tanja's holding Slava offerings we brought to Lelic for blessing. Tanja's patron saint is no other than St. John of Shanghai and San Francisco, who carried the Orthodox faith all the way to China and then to America, and is the spiritual child of our beloved Saint Nikolai Velimirovic, one of the greatest Serbian theologians and a modern-day saint, a prolific theological writer, and a highly gifted orator, often referred to as the new John Chrysostom. Originally from small village of Lelic, where he was born on December 23rd, 1880, St. Nikolai learned about Orthodox faith at the neighboring monastery Celje, where his mother took him for prayer and Holy Communion as a child, and where his formal education began. After finishing primary education in Valjevo, Nikola petitioned for entrance into the military academy, but he could not pass the physical exam due to his small frame, he was told. Through the divine providence of our Heavenly Father, who desired that Nikola be a soldier of his heavenly kingdom and not the earthly one, Nikola was accepted into the seminary of St. Sava in Belgrade, where he began studies as a seminarian, where he was an outstanding student, not only in theology, but also significant works of the most prominent writers of Western and Eastern European cultures. He was chosen to continue his study in Western Europe, where he obtained a doctorate in divinity from the University of Bern in Switzerland and a doctorate in philosophy from Oxford University. He also studied in Russia at the Theological Academy in St. Petersburg. And I believe he earned 3 additional doctorates during his lifetime. So he's an extraordinary mind. St. Nikolai was a missionary to America, coming to this land 4 times, spending the last 11 years of his life here, where he fell asleep in the Lord on March 18, 1956. Bishop Nikolai was canonized by the Serbian Orthodox Church in 1987. He's remembered by American Orthodox Christian as a protector and inspirer of Serbian Orthodox Church in America, as an instructor at St. Sava Seminary in Libertyville, Illinois, as a dean and rector of the St. Tikhon of the Dead Seminary, South Canaan, Pennsylvania, and of course is the author of countless texts and books, including the valuable Prologue of Ohrid. The Church of Lelic Monastery was built in 1929 in the center of Lelic village, birthplace of Bishop Nikolai, to be declared a monastery in 1997. Monastery is the endowment of Bishop Nikolai Velimirovic and his father Dragut. After 25 years of repose in the Lord in America, Holy Bishop Nikolai's body was returned to his homeland in Western Serbia, Lelic Monastery, on April 27, 1991. The reliquary was open during the liturgy and had a blessing to venerate the Holy Saints' holy relics. After liturgy, the abbot of Lelic Monastery, Georgi, blessed the Slava bread and koliva, the offerings of my friend, and Here is another exterior view of the monastery church, the eastern side, the altar apse. So you can guess which style it's in. Modern style. And then we proceeded to Tanya's home to celebrate her Slava. Here's a picture inside her iconography studio. Our next stop is Manasija Monastery near Despotovac, located about 135 kilometers southeast of Belgrade in the Resava River Gorge. The monastery was built in the hard times after the Battle of Kosovo as an endowment of Despot Stefan Lazarevic, who ruled Serbia from 1389 to 1427. Its special feature is the fortification consisting of 11 towers connected by defensive walls, ramparts with passages capable of defending and protecting the monastery settlement. You can imagine how important that was during the Ottomans. I visited Manasija with a group of foreign tourists who, as it turned out, had no previous contact with Orthodoxy whatsoever. As part of a well-organized tour, a broader tour, it was very practical for me to go visit some of the sites that I visited as a child with my parents, like the Lisne waterfalls, some caverns, and a monolithic archaeological site, Lepenski Vir. So we arrived after the morning services, and this was the first time in my life when I visited an Orthodox monastery, and I did not see a single monk. So they were either praying in their cells, doing their obediences, or hiding from foreign tourists. But this is their quarters. Following its foundation, the monastery became the cultural center of the Serbian state. Its Resava school was well known for its manuscripts and translations throughout the 15th and 16th centuries, and was called the bastion of knowledge for learning, transcribing, translating, and illuminating manuscripts in the Serbian Despotate. After the death of Despot Stefan Lazarevic in 1427, he was buried in the monastery church dedicated to Holy Trinity. The monastery church follows the Morava school architecture, which I discussed earlier. However, with variations in the use of materials and sculptural decorations that changed the rules. Some archaeological solutions are copied from Iranica, like the 5 domes and etc. Carved stone surfaces of the facades, accentuating the height of the domes, are extremely limited. Use of the sculptural ornaments. So, if you recall, the sculptural ornaments, the Romanesque, so this didn't have that. Inside the church narthex, into the nave, you will notice that large surfaces of fresco paintings are missing or damaged. And this is because during the Ottoman rule, the Turks would use the roofs from Orthodox churches, they would remove them to produce weapons. So a lot of these incredible frescoes in many churches, oh, I apologize, sorry about that, they'll go away, are damaged. During the archaeological investigations in 2006, Despot Stefan Lazarevic's grave was discovered in the southeast corner of the nave, and his relics were placed in the reliquary that can be venerated by the pilgrims. So this reliquary is usually placed on the south side of the iconography. So this is a very special place for me personally. Monastery. Predrag talked about King Stefan Urš III, the founder of the monastery, briefly at his charter. So as you can see here, before being able to step inside the ancient gates of Visoki Dečani Monastery, one has to pass a heavily guarded K4 checkpoint, which is manned by Italian NATO soldiers. Visoki Dečani has been attacked multiple times, including mortar strikes and an attempted bombing in recent decades. Despite being a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it remains under constant threat, requiring round-the-clock military protection. So the site of the armored vehicles parked near century-old Orthodox monastery was a stark reminder of the challenges faced by the sacred place and the monks. Yet the moment we stepped inside, past the monastery walls, a profound sense of peace and timelessness takes over. Stepping into the monastery grounds felt like entering a different world. One of peace, monastic life, divine beauty. I was accompanied on this trip by 3 brothers in Christ from Belgrade, 2 of whom are originally from Kosovo and Metohija. We arrived after the evening services has ended and were greeted by the abbot and several monks as they were just leaving the trapeza. Our welcoming guide, Kiro Petar, escorted us first to our rooms. Mine was in the guest house women's quarters. And from there, we went to the monastery trapeza, where a table was set for us with a deliciously prepared meal by the monks. Afterwards, we were given a private tour of the monastery church dedicated to the Ascension of Christ, a very special privilege granted to us by the abbot. So the monastery was founded around 1327 by King Stefan III, son of King Milutin and the father of Emperor Dusan. This magnificent church, I say Catholic, is an architectural masterpiece built between 1327 and 1335. And unlike most Serbian medieval churches, which follow up that Byzantine plan, Dečani church is remarkably tall. The dome is incredibly tall, which earned the church name and the monastery Visoki Dečani, the high. Visoki means high Dečani. Holy King Stefan himself was buried here after his death in 1331, and his relics remain incorrupt, like pilgrims run across the earth. You can see that the church is crafted from two-tone stone, light yellow onyx from Peć, it's a region of Metohija, and light reddish Beka. The church displays a unique synthesis of Serbian, Byzantine, West Romanesque, and Gothic elements, which is a very rare architectural blend in medieval Orthodox architecture. The facade is adorned with intricate stone carving, including mythical monks. Inside, I was immediately struck by the vast expanse of 14th century frescoes, covering over 1,000 individual compositions. One of the most complete Byzantine fresco painting ensembles in the existence anywhere in the world, covered with stories from the Old and the New Testament. So this is the narthex of the church, with the entrance to the nave. To the right of the entrance into the nave is a fresco of the Nemanjić dynasty, and to the left is a fresco of Theotokos holding a scroll with an inscription of her dialogue with her son, our Christ. Accept the prayer of your mother, son of mankind. What do you want, mother? I want forgiveness of sinners. I want forgiveness for sinners. They make me angry. Forgive them, my son. They do not repent. For my sake, give them under my protection. And Christ replies, for your sake, I will give the ones that are yours to you. I thank you, the word, mother says. So here's a photo I took inside the nave of the church. Um, to the right of the column, the right column, um, is a rare depiction of Christ holding a spiritual sword that cuts sin from man. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. Here's a very high dome of the church with Christ the Pantocrator fresco inside the dome. The iconostasis, together with the icons, is original from the 14th century. Remarkable. To the left is a fresco of Saint Stephen Dejanski holding his endowment, the Church of the Ascension of Christ, as his offering to God. And to the right is the reliquary with his holy relics inside. The church celebrates him as a great martyr on November 11 or 14, depending on the calendar, Julian or Gregorian. As a 10-year-old boy, he was given as a hostage to the Tatar Nogai Khan, and as a youth, as Predrag mentioned, he was falsely accused of an attempt to depose his father from the throne, and was blinded and imprisoned in the monastery of Christ, the Creator. Pious and mild-mannered and compassionate he was. He won the favor of monks and lords alike, and even the Byzantine Emperor Andronicus II himself. 7 years later, through the mediation of Serbian and Greek bishops, his father reconciled with him and gave the region of Budimir, today's Montenegro, to rule. I will continue to say a few words more about the life of the Holy King Stephen in a moment. So I just wanted to show you that the abbot did us an extraordinary honor of lifting the curtain so we could peek behind the royal doors into the altar space and the frescoes there. So the Dejani Church has two chapels integrated on both sides of the space. Chapel of St. Demetrius, which you can see on the left. And chapel dedicated to Saint the Wonder Worker today. In 1321, after the death of King Milutin, Stephen was crowned in prison as King III. And before his coronation, he removed the bandages from his eyes and revealed to everyone that he had been healed. He admired basically the wonder workers greatly and that Stephen inherited a large estate from his father that was rich in silver and gold mines, and he was also developed, the region was also developed in agriculture, livestock farming, and commerce. He ruled wisely and in God-pleasing manner with love toward both his people and God. The Holy King concerned himself with philanthropic works and building and decorating churches located both within his own state and abroad, in Jerusalem and the Holy Land, Alexandria, Sinai, Thessaly, Constantinople, and especially the Holy Mount Athos in the famous monastery of Hilandar. The pinnacle of Stephen's endowment efforts was the construction of Dejani Monastery, whose name he would later carry, Saint Stephen of Dejani. Oh, this is a detail from the doors of the chapel of Saint Nicholas the Worker. I did not take this picture, but I wanted to show you when the lecture is open. The monks did open it for us, and we had the blessing to venerate the relic. I don't have a picture. I didn't dare to get a picture of them, but I wanted to show you, so I borrowed this from monastery archive. So many people in distress, the blind, the deaf, mute, the weakened, and especially the mentally ill, were brought to faith and prayer, were healed throughout centuries. Although many centuries have passed. Even today, the holy body of the saint rests intact, liquid before the iconography of the church of Dechany, and is the cause of many miracles. I invite you to, I put the address of their website, and I invite everyone to visit their website and to learn more about the life of Saint Stephen, Holy Communion. So our private tour ended, it was already dark, and one. And the next day, we attended liturgy. Here's what is before the liturgy. Again, the narthex, the ceiling with magnificent frescoes, which I couldn't really get a close up because they were so far, so high. So here in this book that we brought two books. You can maybe if you're interested see them more close up, and also a book of the Dechany treasury, which is the most opulent treasury of the medieval Orthodox monastery anywhere in the world, with illustrations. These unusual architectural elements that are so well synthesized in this magnificent church. So after the liturgy, we were given a tour of the monastic economy. While pilgrims and donations play a role in sustaining the monastery, the monks rely heavily on a centuries-old model of monastic economia, ensuring both spiritual and material sustainability. The monastery maintains vast orchards, vineyards, and fields where the monks cultivate fruits, vegetables, and grains. One of their products is Dechany cheese. They also produce honey. They operate a vineyard and a winery producing high-quality wines that are sold to members and guardians of the monastery. In addition to farming, the monks engaged in wood carving, and you've seen some pictures of a wood carving workshop, iconography. There's probably a vacuum in his wood carving studio. Also, they built iconostases, and he was showing us photographs of all the iconostases that are built and shipped to countries like Germany, France, and I think even further than that. This is an iconography studio. Oh, this is iconostasis building workshop, and when we entered, I heard the best, the piano sound of Bach's variations. Like, where's this coming from? And apparently there was a pianist monk on top of this structures playing the piano, and that's what he does for hours a day. That's his obedience to play. You know, that's what he loves. That's his gift. And the monks are very, very educated. Most of them have PhDs. Some of them multiple. They speak several languages. There's so many abundance of talents, but they all have their obediences, and sometimes the obedience is not what your talent is. Sometimes it is, but they have to kind of, respectfully do what the abbot assigns. Some more pictures of the farm. So this is dairy production. So monastery welcomes pilgrims, providing them with simple yet warm hospitality. Many visitors donate gratitude. Oh, here's the abbot Pavel talking photography. He's there the monarch on the monastery. So I'm sure you recognize Gračanica, the picture of Gračanica, which is about as a masterpiece of Serbian Byzantine architecture. You will recall a 5 rows arranged in a cross and square layout, and its harmonious blend of elegant proportions and intricate brickwork. The church draws the eye upward, creating the image of heavenly ascent. It radiates majesty, demonstrating the genius of its medieval builders. Entering the church is like stepping into a sacred icon of living theology. The frescoes painted shortly after its construction rank among the greatest achievements of Byzantine art. They have surprisingly vivid colors. They're well preserved. The compositions in the nave represent the earthly life of Jesus and the ecclesiastical calendar. In the main dome is the fresco of Christ the Pantocrator. Trinity. Iconostasis with some 2 out of 4 columns. So here we have a beautiful fresco of the Dervish of the Theotokos above the arch. The Theotokos is that's the monastery's eternal feast. Her presence is deeply felt there. And along biblical figures, there are frescoes of Serbian royalty, Stefan Nemanja family tree, and also on the side, kind of inside the arch, is to the right. You will see King Stefan Milutin holding Gračanica as his offering to God, and the fresco on the left is a fresco of Queen Jelena and King Uroš as monastics. Queen Jelena was of noble origin, and according to some sources, she was the granddaughter of the Byzantine Emperor Isaac II Angelos, on her parental side, and was also connected to the Hungarian royal house of Arpad. The most famous story of Jelena and Uroš is that of their wedding day, namely Uroš had planted with lilacs an entire valley down the road Helen was supposed to pass to give him her hand in marriage, because he wanted to mimic the Mediterranean landscape and remind his future wife of the place in France where she grew up. She is remembered, among other things, as the founder of a monastery Gradac, her endowment, and as the founder of the first school for females in Grenoble, where she would accept young women from poor families, where they would learn various skills and be given dowry to get married. The Gračanica frescoes, even though 700 years old, are incredibly well preserved. It's a miracle. They're painted by 2 masters from Thessaloniki, Mihailo and Evtihie, and they're truly astounding. So the close-up of King Milutin. Another fresco of Prophet Elijah with the Gračanica founding charter inscribed on the wall. So there are 2 side chapels next to on each side of the in the nave, inside the nave. Beyond the breathtaking architecture and the frescoes, Gračanica is a vibrant spiritual and cultural center. It is the official seat of the Metropolitan of the Diocese of Raška and Prizren, and a vital monastic community of Orthodox nuns who dedicate their lives to prayer and preservation of sacred traditions. Despite the turbulent surroundings, Gračanica remains an active place of worship for local Orthodox faithful, as well as pilgrims from Serbia and abroad who participate in divine liturgies, feast day celebrations, and processions. This is our next destination in Kosovo and Metohija, which is located along the banks of the Bistrica River at the foot of the Rugova Mountains. It's the historic seat of the Serbian Orthodox Church and a place of consecration of Serbian patriarchs, or enthronement of Serbian patriarchs. The monastery is ecclesiastically administered by the Diocese of Raška and Prizren, but it is a special situation. It has a special status since it's under the direct jurisdiction of the Serbian Patriarch, whose title includes Archbishop of Bench. It traces its origins in early 13th century when Saint Sava, the first Archbishop of Serbia, established it as Archiepiscopal see or metropolitanate, and it was expanded during 14th century. And in 1346, under Stefan Dusan, the Serbian Orthodox Church was elevated to a patriarchate with the monastery of Peć as its official seat. The patriarchate was dissolved by the Ottomans in 1463, though later restored in 1557, making a revival of Serbian spiritual and cultural life. Okay, the monastery complex consists of 4 main churches. The church, four churches are connected, so 3 of them are connected into one. They have a common narthex and a small one of Saint Nicholas on the side. It's a little bit more modest. So, Church of the Holy Virgin, the Gitria, Church of the Holy Apostles from the 13th century, which is the biggest one, and the Church of Saint Demetrius from the 14th century. The complex also has, as you can see, the nuns' quarters, the cemetery, some auxiliary facilities, souvenir shop here next to the bell tower, which is more recent, from the 20th century. This is monastery abbess Haritina. She was very kind and offered great hospitality, and we discussed some spiritual things, among others, the painful process of cutting off one's own passions at great length. Recognizing its historical and artistic significance, UNESCO designated the Patriarchate of Peć as a World Heritage Site in 2006, listing it as part of the medieval monuments in Kosovo. Extensive restoration efforts have been undertaken to preserve the monastery's frescoes, many of which date back to the 14th century. These frescoes are among the finest examples of Serbian Byzantine art, depicting Christ as a token of saints, Serbian worshipers. The monastery also houses relics of late Serbian patriarchs and saints, priceless manuscripts, and liturgical artifacts. The icon of the Most Holy Theotokos, also known as Bogorodica Krasnica, is a miraculous icon with a rich and interesting history. The icon is believed to be painted by the Holy Apostle and Evangelist Luke in Gethsemane, near the tomb of the Blessed Virgin Mary in the year 48. The icon was transferred from Jerusalem to Constantinople in year 460 by the Byzantine Emperor Leo the Wise, where it stayed at the Temple of the Most Holy Mother of God until 898, when it was sent to Kherson in the Crimea. There, the icon was received by the Russian Prince Saint Vladimir himself, who was baptized in front of it. Around 1989, the icon was brought to Velograd, and from there it was transferred to Nicaea, where it was gifted to Saint Sava of Serbia by the Ecumenical Patriarch Manuel of Constantinople in 1219 on the occasion of the ordination of the Archbishop of Sicily. Saint Sava first brought the icon to Monastery Žiča, and after the Patriarchate of the Serbian Orthodox Church was transferred to the monastery in Peć, this icon was also brought there, and since then it stands in the special throne. It is decorated with numerous precious ornaments gifted in gratitude by those whose prayers were answered before it. The icon is celebrated on the afterfast of the Ascension of our Lord and draws a large number of pilgrims who gather in large processions during the service with monastics and clergy from other monasteries from near and far. In recent years, in a deeply troubling move, the so-called Kosovo government has repeatedly prohibited His Holiness Patriarch Porphyria from entering Kosovo and visiting his own patriarchate seat in Peć. The denial of entry to the patriarch is not only an act of political obstruction and an attack on religious freedom, but it's also a profound spiritual wound towards the Christians, as it disrupts the centuries-old tradition in which each patriarch of Peć returns to the monastery to offer prayers, oversee the spiritual well-being of the monastic community, and reinforce the Serbian Orthodox Church's presence in Kosovo. But despite these obstacles, the monastery remains a beacon of faith, where sisterhood of nuns continue the cycle of daily prayers, liturgies, and monastic labor, safeguarding its sacred traditions. So we are approaching this, wrapping up. The Church of the Holy Mother of God, also known as Ljeviška, in Kosovo, was a masterpiece and a martyr that has suffered greatly at the hands of those who sought to erase it. Still standing in the historic city of Pisa, Ljeviška is one of the most extraordinary testaments to medieval Serbian Orthodox art and architecture. Built also in the early 14th century as an endowment of King Milutin, it represents the height of the Serbian Byzantine artistic tradition, adorned with frescoes that blend Eastern Orthodox iconography with Western Gothic influences. These frescoes, with their refined use of color, expressive faces, and intricate details, reflect the period of flourishing Orthodox theology and artistic mastery, a time when Serbia sought to glorify God through sacred art. Yet, despite its unparalleled beauty and spiritual significance, the Church has suffered immense destruction in modern times, particularly during 99 Kosovo War and the March pogrom of 2004. During the 99 Kosovo War, the church was desecrated and its religious artifacts looted. However, the worst was yet to come. In March of 2004, Kosovo was engulfed in organized anti-Serbian violence known as the March pogrom, in which over 4,000 Serbs were expelled, 35 churches and monasteries were burned, and countless Serbian homes were destroyed. Even the theological seminary of Prizren faced similar devastation, with seminarians losing their lives in the flames. Our Most Holy Mother of God was one of the most tragic victims of this attack. The interior was set on fire, leaving many priceless frescoes blackened, defaced, permanently damaged. Icons were stolen or destroyed, and sacred relics were desecrated. The church, which had stood for nearly 700 years, was reduced to a shell of its former self. So this picture was taken at the entrance of the church, where Kosovo police has a checkpoint to grant or deny entry to visitors after physically retaining their IDs. So one of my brothers in Christ, Ivan, who I mentioned before, a Serb from Kosovo, wore a plain white T-shirt with a subtle design that says "Kod Met," which is short for Kosovo and Metohija, and I already explained the toponym, which means blackbird, and Metohija, a gift to the monastery or property of the monastery. So the Kosovo Albanian police officer told him that he had to take it off and that he could not walk around prison wearing that shirt. So I approached the officer and asked him in English what was the problem, and I told him that, I came from the United States to see the condition of the church, and Ivan was my guide. So to explain why he's asking to take the shirt off. Then he told Ivan that he could put the shirt back on, but inside out, so that the letters would not show. So when I asked him why he was harassing us, he responded to me in Serbian. This is an Albanian customer. Look, I don't have any problem with him wearing the T-shirt, but the people do. I'm just doing my job. If he continues to walk around like that, you guys are going to create a huge problem for me, and someone else will ask you to do the same thing. Please do what I say. So this type of harassment and violence against Serbs preserving their Christian identity is part of the broad and systematic attempt to erase Serbian Orthodox heritage in Kosovo. At the dawn of the 21st century, Orthodox Christian heritage has faced continued destruction in Kosovo and Metohija, where over 150 churches and monasteries have been attacked or destroyed since the 1999 Kosovo War. So, in conclusion, I can say these pilgrimages were very emotional and spiritually enriching experiences. My trip in 2021 was the first contact with many of these sanctuaries. It was my first trip to Kosovo and Metohija. And with support of my family, my husband and my son, through our small nonprofit organization, I produced an international photography exhibit entitled Heritage of Stone and Heaven, UNESCO World Heritage of Serbia, with the intention to raise awareness about the importance of these sites and of preserving these sacred Orthodox shrines, especially in Kosovo and Metohija. During the exhibition was presented first in Belgrade, then at the Embassy of Serbia in Washington, D.C. in the winter of 2023. And I was incredibly blessed to collaborate with the monks of Visoki on their English edition of the Treasury book, of their Visoki Treasury book that illustrates beautifully liturgical objects, icons from 13th to 19th century, and many other items. I invite you to take a look at it if you have time. So, since the publication, the book has been included in special collections at the Library of Congress, at the American House Library, NYU, Columbia, and a few other New York Public Library, Schwarzman. So we invite you all to join us on the next pilgrimage to Serbia and experience these sites for yourself. And if you have any questions, we're open for questions now. So.
I was curious, Svetlana, how did you get connected? You didn't mention to people that when you were showing that place setting, that was your name on the place setting there. How did you get to know the bishops so that you got invited to that consecration?
Well, it all connects to another monastery, which is located in Belgrade, Sad. These friendships connect to a monastery that is also in South Serbia, monastery, where Predrav's brother was a monk for 35 years. Became an abbot of monk, became a bishop. At one point, Bishop Jeremy, who was being temple, was a guest of he, my brother-in-law, and a few other monks performed at the Carnegie Hall. It's part of a and I invited them to give a concert at in South York City at Potomac in Serbian. So there were guests, and so when he was, bishop, and the vacation, Trevor could go. There was a competition in Taekwondo, and not want to go everywhere, so it was possible to go together. But I went, and so I had a huge blessing to participate, to be part of it, to attend, and to, yeah. I hope I didn't bore you too much.
No, thank you so much for putting together tour for us. It wasn't just geography. You took us time of your homeland.
Well, that was the idea.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for reading, but it's hard to connect all the photographs with, at the right time. So I have a word photo, popping up. So I'm sorry to.
No apologies. We thank you very much for the excellent, it was so rich, so much in it. We were trying to hang on to all the words. But
Well, I hope you got a better understanding of the Serbian Orthodox heritage. And Predrag beautifully, put it in the context of the emergence of Serbian state, and I try my best to, through these pictures and narratives.
the other thing that you mentioned with these books back here, which I've looked at, and to call them books is kind of like not adequate. They're magnificent publications. Just a few seconds of flipping through it, you can see the incredible quality. So if you got even a few minutes just to give a little quick look at it. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having
All
us.
right.